The Northern Pacific Railroad, like most other major railroads, was rapidly adding diesel power to its locomotive roster in the early to mid 1950s. In the Seattle area and in western Washington state, a few steam engines survived into 1956 and 1957, and some were kept for special runs or for standby service. Our program will give you a glimpse of some of the last steamers on the Northern Pacific, and will feature an unlikely 460 that stars in several trips as part of Northern Pacific's Farewell to Steam. We begin our look at Northern Pacific Steam at a roundhouse and yard facility believed to be Spokane, Washington in early 1954. The NP steam was shot by the late Maynard Lang, who had passed on when we received this film, and there were no notes with the footage. Maynard Lang was well known in the Seattle area, and Mr. Lang's good friend Elwyn Purrington has provided us with background information on the footage and made available his original Northern Pacific audio that he recorded during the 1950s. Number 5110, a huge Z6 Class 4664 NP Challenger, rides the turntable at Spokane and is later seen being serviced. These engines never ran west to Seattle because they were too big for Stampede Tunnel on Stampede Pass east of Seattle. This engine was built in October 1936 by Alco and scrapped in November 1954. Therefore, this is probably some of the last footage of this engine. Here's a 4664 Challenger of the Spokane, Portland, and Seattle Railway, a subsidiary railroad owned by Northern Pacific and the Great Northern Railway. Next, we see some dead Challengers and an unidentified switch engine working in the freight yard. The first Northern Class 484, number 2600, sits in the dead line at Seattle. The 484 wheel arrangement locomotives first ran on the Northern Pacific Railroad. Thus, the nickname Northern came from the NP. Number 2600 was built by Alco in December 1926 and scrapped in February 1956. Like the 2600, number 2601 would soon be towed to the dead line and would later be joined by the next engine in sequence, number 2602. 2602 was scrapped in May of 1957, and 2601 was scrapped in June of 1959. They were all scrapped at the South Tacoma shops. One of the most famous 484s was number 2626, which was chosen to be the test engine for the new Timken roller bearings. Numbered the 1111, or 4 Aces, it was built by Alco in March of 1930 for Timken and was the first all-roller bearing equipped steam engine. The engine was purchased by the Northern Pacific in 1933. Like the other 484s, 2626 was converted from coal to burning oil in the 1940s. Seen here in Seattle, the 2626 would also gain fame by being one of the last engines on the NP. And the Timken engine pulled several special trains, including her final trip to Cle Elum over Stampede Pass on August 4th, 1957. Unfortunately, Mr. Lang's films of the 2626 on that trip and others have never been located. Engine 2626 was scrapped at South Tacoma in September 1958, despite failed efforts to save the locomotive. A few engines soldiered on in the twilight of the steam era on the Northern Pacific, like this L-Class 060 number 1132, switching in the Seattle coach yard in 1954. Class W3282, number 1782, comes out of the Seattle Roundhouse onto the turntable and is seen heading for the freight yard. 1782 was also one of the last engines active in the Seattle area. .460 number 1372, a Class S4, operated several trips called the Casey Jones excursions from Seattle, as did other locomotives such as 1911 and 2626. However, it was this lighter 460 that could operate on the scenic line to Snoqualmie and North Bend. We begin with footage of the very first Casey Jones excursion, operated on December 2nd, 1956, from Seattle to Snoqualmie. The route would go north along the west shore of Lake Washington, then southeast via Redmond and Issaquah. The train is attacked by Indians and train robbers at Kenmore, an added bonus or distraction depending upon your outlook on these types of events. The Casey Jones excursion, organized by Miss Carol Cornish, was very popular, and a Seattle paper on Monday, December 3rd, 1956, stated that the train carried over 1,300 riders, despite the capacity of 1,092. After departing Kenmore, we are treated to pacing shots along the east shore of Lake Sammamish and along Highway 10, which later became Interstate 90. Engine 1372 spent the last years operating in this same area. So let's take a break from the excursion trains and go back in time to get a glimpse of the star of the Casey Jones excursion trains working in regular freight service. 1372 is seen switching the yard at Woodinville and later at Redmond. The engine was retired from freight duty in 1956, but later revived and painted up at the Seattle Roundhouse to haul the excursion trains. On April 28, 1957, Engine 1372 worked another Casey Jones excursion train. On this trip, we'll see some more pacing and the famous view of Snoqualmie Falls with live audio of 1372 in the background. On the return trip, 1372 operates on the line through Kirkland and Renton on the east side of Lake Washington. The last operating Northern Pacific road engine in the Seattle area was W2 Class 282, number 1911. 1911 was operated by engineer Jimmy Darker. We see 1911 at the Seattle Roundhouse, then on a train bound for Tacoma, taking orders at the Spokane Street Tower and heading south under the Allentown Covered Bridge. The bridge, like 1911, would soon be history. But 1911's whistle lived on, being used occasionally on the 1372 Casey Jones excursions. On May 5, 1957, 1372 departed the Seattle Freight Yard along Occidental Avenue with another excursion to North Bend. This trip would feature street running, with the photographer bravely shooting film from an auto ahead of the train. This view is from the north side of the Lake Washington Ship Canal as the train is about to cross the NP Bascule Bridge. Several trips make up this sequence with 1372. Not only is number 1372 gone today, but so too is the bridge, which was removed after the 1970 Burlington Northern merger. The train passed the Redmond Depot, long since abandoned on this freight-only line. Today, Redmond is well known for being the home of Microsoft Corporation. Thanks to the Casey Jones excursions, engines such as the 1911, 1372, and 2626 were granted extensions from their inevitable date with the scrapper's torch. For thousands of people, it was the thrill of steam and a journey to a place like Snoqualmie Falls that drew them. On December 7th and 8th, 1957, engine number 1776 hauled the last Casey Jones steam excursion on a 2-day trip to Olympia and return. It was the final chapter for Northern Pacific Steam in the area. Spokane, Portland, and Seattle 484, number 700, makes its first tour, working several days in conjunction with the Washington Central Steam Fest in October of 1990. Great scenery and action abound in Washington State as we follow 700 on former SP&S trackage through the Columbia River Gorge and later along the Yakima River Canyon. Join us for a look at some of the last steam engines in the West as we visit the remote Rayonier Logging Railroad in western Washington State. You'll enjoy log trains pulled by several 2662 locomotives, including former Sierra Railway number 38. In addition, we'll see 282 number 90 and other engines in 1961 and 1962, including the final public farewell to steam at Rayonier. Authentic steam sounds from the engine shown make this a great program of the last steam logging operation.